Hey, I'm Cliff Townsend, founder of the Money Lender, where we help people secure financing in order to fulfill their dreams of owning real estate. And on these shows, what we do is we talk about business, real estate, and money mastery. And tonight is no different. What we're going to talk about is how to be successful with Airbnb. And my expert guest tonight is Rodney Williams. Now, I found out about Rodney a few years ago when I was looking into getting into Airbnb myself, and I found him on the WhatsApp group. So, like I said, the expert tonight is Rodney Williams, and he's going to shoot. So, I'm going to turn over to Rodney, where he's going to tell us a little bit about who he is and how we got into the business. Rodney, thank you for being here, man.
No problem, man. Definitely glad to be here. Like I say, I love speaking on these platforms, man. It's definitely always good to share. When people, look to get into new things and just build more income for themselves, especially through real estate. So, my name's Rodney. I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia. I'm from Mississippi. 18-year military vet, still currently serving part time. And about 4 years ago, I got into the short term rental business, or as a lot of people call it, the Airbnb business, right? And I started out, when I first started out, I jumped off the bridge, man. I started with 4 units. But that was only after I educated myself about the business, right? So I took two mentorships, right, to learn all about it. One of them I paid 20K for, the other one I paid 5K for. Learned everything I could, and I felt I was ready to get my first unit, right? So I just happened to find my first unit in Mississippi, where I'm from, where I was born, and found a landlord. He had just remodeled a 8 unit apartment complex. That's all it was 8 units. So as soon as he finished remodeling it, I was able to uh, secure the lease for the first 4 units from him, right? And he was ecstatic. And then once I secured that lease, got my first 4 units. It took me about 7,000 per unit. Yeah, right. So
All right, Rodney, hold on one second. I don't want you to
go
get too
go.
much into the details of that, right?
Oh, yeah,
I
I'm
want to ask
going
you some
straight
questions.
into it.
I want to ask you some questions so we can lead up into that, right? Well,
Okay,
first of all, let
okay.
me say, man, thank you for your service because I know you're still active military. So thank you for your service. I salute
Oh,
you,
yeah,
right? So, so let me back up to what you just said. So first of all, it's now the term has changed to not Airbnb but really short-term rental.
yeah.
Um, well, let's start with that. Why is that term changed over the years and gone from people saying Airbnb to short-term rental? What's the difference?
The reason you always want to call it a short term rental business is because those are the type of customers you're looking to serve. That's when you sign up for these platforms, Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com. They're all short term rental platforms or midterm, right? So when you go to secure a lease from a landlord, from an apartment complex, from whoever, Airbnb has a bad stigma, right? People think with Airbnb comes parties, comes bad guests, comes damage to their properties, right? So we avoid saying, "Hey, I'm looking to start an Airbnb," or "I want to lease your property so I can get on Airbnb."
You
They
know, I think I
automatic,
think I think I just answered. I think as you're speaking, I think I remember it because it's like certain companies that have the name. You just say so. Airbnb is a company, so and that's one of the first ones that we know. So that's why we call it Airbnb. But there's other
yeah,
companies in the game now. It's not just Airbnb. So now it's short-term rental. So it's
yeah,
not just Airbnb. There's Verbo. There's Booking. There's all of these
yeah,
different platforms. Okay, I get it
right,
now. So that's why it's not Airbnb short-term rentals because
right,
it's more inclusive now. Let me ask
yeah.
you something. So you talking about how you got your first unit. So how does the person who looking to get into Airbnb, right? What's the first thing they want to do? Say, hey, I'm just thinking about I want to get into Airbnb business. What's the first thing? I'm sorry, short-term rental business, right? The short-term rental business. What's the first thing that someone needs to do? Do I is it best if I looking where I live in my community? Does it matter
So
where I look?
yeah.
Oh,
So the first thing I always tell people is to educate themselves and learn what exactly it is, what it entails, right, and how much money would it cost you? Like, what's the profitability, right? You might live in an area to where it's not popular, and you won't make that good of money. So you have to look outside. I've never ran a unit in the place that I live. All my units have been remote, right? I didn't start where I live, but I recommend people do start where they are because it's easier for them to be more hands on.
okay.
Because I was able to pay for mentorship and learn all of that information, right? If you can't afford to pay for mentorship, you need to start small, start local, and start with, you know what I mean? When I say small, that's a one bedroom, that's a studio apartment that where the rent's low, and you do the research as to knowing what the going rent is, you know what I mean? Knowing how much you can make off those units, knowing what your competitors are doing, right? So getting your first unit can be easy, can be hard, but if you don't know the business, if you don't know how to furnish the unit, how not to overspend, how to hire the right cleaners, you know what I mean, how to automate your business, then you got to slow down because all that stuff will make you end just as quick as you start, you
So
know.
let's back all the way up. So if I want to get into this business, okay, great. So I want to start local, right? Let's just say I didn't spend the money that you or invested the money that you did in the
Yeah.
mentorship, right? So I'll start local. Start with something small. Start with a one bedroom local. So now I need to sign a lease with that landlord, and let's just say it's a 1 year lease. So now I'm committed to a 1 year lease, right?
Yeah.
How what let's just say if I don't know if maybe you only put numbers, right? How do I let's just say I'm paying $1,000. Let's use basic numbers. I'm paying $1,000 a month, right? And I'm in whatever area. How can I determine because it's not gonna be rented, it's not like somebody living there 365 days a year. It's gonna be short-term rental. How can I determine what's the best way for me to determine if I can make money on this
So
lease?
there's a few platforms out there. AirDNA, Mash Visor, or a couple of sites you can look, and you can look up what, you know, how the short term rental business is in your area and wherever you're looking, right? They'll tell you what the current daily nightly rates are going for. They'll tell you how profitable those units are. If there's one bedroom or two bedrooms, that's more popular in the area. So you have to do the research on that aspect as well. But before you even do that, and you get your first lease, you need to make sure the landlord knows what you're doing. It gets approved inside of your lease, right? He needs to know that you're operating as a business and you're going to use his property as a short term rental, right? And then you need to tell him why it benefits him to lease to you and why it's better for him to lease to you as a short term rental than a long term person, right?
Those are the kind of questions I want to. So let's back up. I want to ask two questions. What you just said. First, you have to let the landlord know that hey, this is what I'm going to be using for.
Yes.
So how do you present that to a landlord? You know, because most people, I'm assuming that most landlords, when they put their property for rent, they're not looking for short-term rental. They're looking
Correct.
to rent it for a year for X amount of dollars, X month per month. How
Correct.
do I go to that person? And second question, how do I show them the benefit and what are the benefits?
So that's the thing. So, I created a sheet, called, why rent to me sheet, right? And it pretty much breaks down to a landlord once you let them know that, hey, I own a short term rental business. We lease multiple properties in different areas. So you're letting them know that you're experienced, you've been doing this, and then you show them that, hey, here's a lot of the benefits of why. This is a sheet not only that you're telling him, but you're showing it to him as well. Here's some of the things that most long term tenants you go through with long term tenants, right? Not only are you risking certain things, appliances being used, overly used over time, your property getting damaged, not knowing who's in and out of the property. Like when we have the property, we treat it as if it's a hotel that needs to be immaculate every single day, every single week, right? Because if we get bad guests, if our property is dirty and nasty, we no longer operate as a business. Therefore, we are in and out of the property weekly. We have cleaners going in and out of the property, cleaning the property, making sure it's perfect, and then you're able to come see the property whenever you want to, right? Because when it's not being occupied by a daily, nightly guest, right, it's open, it's fully furnished, it's spotless because it's been cleaned. You know what I mean? And then he'll be able to tell that it looks like a hotel. it's being taken care of like a hotel. So why would you want, a long-term tenant who I'm sure they've had issues with in the past? Because most of the time, every landlord has had some type of issue, right? They've had
Yeah.
some type of issue with appliances, things like that. A lot of times we can incentivize them, say, hey, if it's something that's an issue that's $300 or less, we take care of it, right? Anything major, landlords take care of it, right? So you guys hardly ever have to spend any money when you're renting to us. So
How do you overcome? I'm sure this is an objection. How do you overcome the objection if there is one where the landlord says, "Well, I want $1,000 a month. How will I know that your business will generate $1,000 a month? What if your business doesn't generate $1,000 a month? Where do I get my money?"
Well, that's the thing. So not only am I qualifying myself by showing that I already make money and I can afford this on my own, right? But I can show you that my company is making money. If your company is not making money, I can show you that I'm making money. I can afford this
Okay.
without a single renter. You see what I'm saying? Just like a long-term tenant has to show their income, you know what I mean? Or show that they can afford the thousand a month by showing 3 months worth of rent. I
Yeah.
can show you 6 times that. Right. Most time they want businesses to show 6 times and personal people to show 3 times. Right. Depending on where you are.
Yeah. Okay. And what are the main benefits to the landlord? Is it the things that you mentioned, like the fact that it's going to be taken care of, it's going to be kept clean? What would you say is the main benefit to the landlord?
So the main benefit, a lot of times if we see that there's room for a lot of profit to be made, and they're only asking 1,000 a month because they're trying to stick with market rent, most short-term rental hosts can afford to pay a couple of hundred above market rent. See what I'm
Okay.
saying? So if they are really on the fence, that's my last incentive for them. Like, hey, how about if I pay you 1,100 instead of 1,000? How about if I pay you 2 months rent up front, right? And I pay, in that way, I sign, and then at the same time, I'm willing to sign a 2 or 3 year lease, right? Because remember, the longer you sign your lease for, the longer you're locked into your monthly rate, right? Most of the time they go up every year on rent. You know what I mean? So now he doesn't have to look for a tenant, for 2, 3 years. Now he has a business that's paying his rent. So the chances are more likely that a business is going to pay that rent than an individual working a 9 to 5. Their hours get cut or they got all these other expenses.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of incentives.
Let me ask you this question. I know you talked about how you got started with the eighth unit and you got your first unit. If you're at the starting today, and you also mentioned, you've done most of your things remote. If you're starting today, what would you do different than what you did when you first started? What mistakes did you make, and what wouldn't you do today? What would you do different?
So when I first started, I scaled too fast, right? So I got my first the I ended up renting the entire complex, which I still have.
Oh, you rented the whole 8 units?
Yeah, I got all 8 units.
How long did it take you to do that? You started with one. How long did it take you to do that?
Well, I rented the other four on the 2.5 months in because I had made enough money to rent the other four within, like, soon as I put it up for listing, they rented out the entire month,
Oh, okay.
right?
Wow.
And then I used all that money to get the other four and furnish them. So yeah, I believed in my process. Once I got, knew what I was doing, I felt confident. I was like, hey, let me go ahead and get the other four leases. Right. So I immediately got the other eight, but then at the same time, I was in a mentorship. I had got two more units in Tampa, Florida. I had got 6 more units in Texas. You know what I mean? So I was scaling and I was able to scale, but at the same time, the Texas units, they were here and there. You know what I mean? So I signed a lease with that property. They knew what I was doing. I got approved to do it, but at the same time, it was like I didn't want to keep them just because it was too much going on. Like it was a property that was set for short-term rental. So all 50 units were all short-term rentals ran by different operators.
Oh, okay.
See what I'm saying? So I was confident in my business and knowing that I knew how to run it better than the other operators, but still a lot of competition. When people don't know what they're doing, they're undercharging. You see what I'm saying? They're willing to not make money to get it booked out, which affects my property.
Hmm.
You see what I'm
How,
saying?
how does it? How does it? Okay, so let's just have in a building and there's 50 other units. How does it affect your business if my units are not rented out? That is, how does it affect you?
Well, it affects it because people start getting desperate, and they, if we're supposed to be charging 150 a night, they get desperate and start charging $100 a night,
Got it. Okay.
right? So now my properties look way overpriced
Yeah.
because all these other units are, and they're not making any money, right? And I look at my minimum. I know how much at minimum I have to make to break even. See what I'm saying?
Okay.
So that's the biggest difference. So that's one of my biggest issues. I scaled too fast, but I ended up well. Ended up selling that portfolio to some of the other people that were there because they wanted more units. So I was able to make a few dollars off my units, and then I ended up getting 18 units in Miami, Florida, which that was the biggest mistake learned from that. That went really well. It was going good, but I did that. Those units didn't have storage facilities, right? When you don't have a storage facility on site, it causes a huge problem, right? Because now I have 18 units and my cleaners have to go to a warehouse to get all of the cleaning supplies, to restock everything, and drive back to the
Hmm.
units, which causes, which not only almost doubles your cleaning fee because they're having to drive and do extra tasks, but it extends everything. I have to have a runner that has to go somewhere else other than the property. It makes the job twice as hard when you don't have storage on site, right?
Okay.
So I ended up selling that portfolio as well. So I made money off of it.
So what you would do different now is definitely, I'm
Yeah,
assuming that you're not looking at any property that doesn't have storage in sight. At
correct.
least that many units.
Yeah, yeah, correct. I would have never got it because it ended up not working out. You know what I mean? Because storage wasn't on site and it was just too much of a headache. And Miami is a party city, so I had to be real strict with guests, and I kicked out a lot of guests that were trying to party, that were smoking, things like that. So you have to know where you're putting your unit and the type of unit you have.
How are you controlling these things when you're remote? You're not in Miami. You're not there. How are you controlling these things?
So
Like you
it's
see, how do you
it's
know people that's partying and stuff like that? How are you knowing this stuff?
So I put every unit has a doorbell camera, right?
Yeah.
In mine, because it's an open hallway, I had cameras at the end of the hallway where I could see anything that's going on in the hallway, right? So I know if I charge, uh, my units were 2 bedroom, 1 bath, right? So I only allow 4 guests. Anytime there's over 4 guests, I charge extra. So if they wanted to bring in 6 guests, I charge $50 per guest per night, right? So I get a lot of people try to sneak guests in to stay overnight, and I
Okay.
would charge them because it's in my house rules. I can see when guests leave, when they come, if they stayed overnight, if they're bringing in cigarettes, if they're bringing in beer. Like I know when a party is happening, and I can stop it. And I also had sound monitors inside called Minute. So there's a decimal level. If they were too loud and disturbing other guests, I would get an alert on my phone that the decimals were above like normal, like loud music, loud. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm able to call them and say, "Hey, I'm getting complaints that it's too loud. Either quiet it down or we have to end your stay." Right? In their stay, they lose all their money if they don't quiet it down. They get put out.
Talking about that, right? Um, what's your a lot of some people don't want to rent short-term rentals because they don't feel secure. What's the stigma around that as far as people feeling secure about even if you go out to the country or out to the state renting short-term rentals?
Yeah, so I mean, it's you have to look at the reviews. A lot of people nowadays they look at the reviews, they see what other guests were saying. We make sure that our listing description describes that it's a quiet neighborhood, you know, where it's located. You know, the security part all comes in how your listing is presented, how it's described, how good your reviews are, right? Reviews are everything, right? Before I stay in an Airbnb somewhere, me and my girl go through all the reviews to see what they're saying.
Hmm.
Any red flag, then we're hesitant. See what I'm saying? So you make or break your own business.
What would be a red flag?
Red flag would be, you know, someone saying that, you know, the host never responds on
Got
time,
it.
right? He doesn't respond at all. So most likely, if I'm having an issue, and I know you're not going to respond for 24 hours, 48 hours, you know, then there's a problem. So I have virtual assistants now. I have all these units. I have 8 units now, and I only work maybe 1 or 2 hours a week in my business.
I know you mentioned that you had units in Miami, that you had those 18 units in Miami, and I know you said you first started with Mississippi. Where's the best place? What are the best? What would you say is the top five areas to do the short term business, short term
So
rental business?
so so here's the thing, right? My best performing units that I decided to keep, these 8, because they're where in my hometown Mississippi, a small town called Moss Point, population 15,000, right?
Really?
Population 15,000,
Okay.
and it's right on the coast, far
Who
south
comes
as you can.
there? Oh, so it's on the coast. You have tourists.
Right. But get this now, all of my renters are contractors. See what I'm saying? Because 8 miles from my units is a oil refinery. 9 miles from my units is a shipbuilding company. Another 9 miles is a power plant, right? So I got all these contractors coming in from out of state, and they you know they stay at my property. So I don't even, right, maybe 20% of my bookings are on Airbnb. The other 80 are directly through me, direct bookings. So that's what I've grown my business to over 4 years of collecting emails and names of all these contractors that have
Huh.
stayed with me, and now I remarket to them every month, right? And when they come stay for a month at a time, 2 months at a time, 3 weeks at a time, right? So my all my properties, all 8 are $1,200 a month for each unit. They're all 3 bedroom, 2 bath, right? And when I rent out, I charge at minimum $100 a night. So what's 100 times 30? $3,000,
Yeah.
right? So rent and expenses is about $1,600. So if I'm charging minimum 3,000, my last booking was 4,200 on one unit. See what I'm saying? So it's more about who you can serve more so than where you're located, right? You can find, if you find a small town where they just built the Amazon, and there's some other, you know, properties where there's a coliseum or something where people come in all the time, you know who your customer is going to be, then you furnish your unit to specifically serve those people and market to them, and they'll keep your unit full. You see what I'm saying? You're not worried about Airbnb, VRBO, you know, a lot of times, because you know once you get out there, people will start coming back, especially if you get them a good experience.
Do you have you ever done the short term rental business outside of the country?
No, I almost did. Like I say, the only reason I'm successful operating units in other states than where I live is because I'm able to find very good, trustworthy cleaners, very good, trustworthy runners that run and get stuff when it's not dealing with cleaning. Right, light bulb goes out. You know what I mean? Batteries die on the entry door panel to do the code. You know they got to run and get batteries to make sure it works again. Those type of things keep your business going. You know what I mean? They're the ones that can check on your property, that can make sure everything's clean, that can make sure everything's restocked, and then you're good to go, right? So it's hard to find people like that out of the country unless you go spend some time there or you know someone that's operating there where you can use their people, you know. So it's
Okay.
easy to keep an eye on the property with cameras. It's easy to control who gets in and out, change the door lock codes. That's why I'm able to do it remotely because I have all those systems and automations set up.
What are the number one things that's so what's the initial cost other than the rent, other than paying the lease, right? What other costs is associated with starting up your own short-term rental that people may not know about or may not be aware when they're coming into the business?
I mean, so you should plan for. I always tell people if you're getting a studio or a one bedroom apartment, you know, if you can spend, if you can, I mean, you can get this done for $4,000, right? It won't be done perfect. It'll be minimal what you put in there. So that's 4,000. You know, that's your rent. That's starting your utilities. That's getting, you know, this is a one bedroom now or a studio. You know, that's getting one love seat, one bed, you know, the mattress, you know, and all of your eating supplies, everything like that. You can get it done, but ideally you want to spend at least about six to 8,000 for a one bedroom, right? About 8 to 10,000 for a two bedroom, and about 10,000 to 12,000 for a three bedroom, right? And that's to really do it right. That includes getting your photographer, a professional photographer, to go in and take photos, right? That includes your rent, your furniture, all of those things, your door locks, your cameras, subscriptions, you know, that's very important.
What kind of return on income and investment do you have on any one of those ones you just talked about, right? So let's just say, just I think you said like $4,000 for a one bedroom, six for a two bedroom. What kind of and how long does it take, in on average, right,
Yeah. So
to get
I
the
mean,
return?
so if you've done your research, it depends on the property, depends on where it is. Um, if you are overpaying rent, then it's going to take you way longer, right?
Yeah,
Most of these landlords have become hip to the game, and they know if they're allowing you to do short term rental, they're charging above market rent, right? You have to do the research and find out if you can afford it or if you should walk away from that deal. You know what I mean? Just because they say yes doesn't mean you should say yes, right? So, ideally, you know, if you're paying exactly what market rent is, you're staying booked out, you know, 70% of the month, you know, you can make your money back in 6 to 9 months. You know what I mean? Especially if you get in during peak season, right? But if you get in, everybody has a slow season, right? Unless you're
okay.
just undercharging, everybody has a slow season. So you should plan to be in the green making money 9 to 10 months out the year. Everybody has at least 1 or 2 months of slow season where they hardly making any money. I've seen people have 3 to 4 months of slow season, right? I have 3.5 months of slow season. They don't go all at once, but they're spread out.
Yeah.
But I have enough money stacked aside during peak season where I know when my slow season are happening and I survive through them. You know.
So it sounds like it's any aspect of real estate, right? You make your money coming in, not when you go out, right? So you got to make sure that you're paying the right amount of rent. So if you can get the rent at the right price, that's where you really making your money. And like
Yeah.
we said, a lot of landlords are here to the game now. They if they know you're gonna come in with a business, they want to charge you more, and then it may not be worth it for you
Right.
because you coming in and you're not buying right in the first place. So or you're not renting right or leasing right. I
Yeah.
know you have a course, right? So, because that's how I found out about you. Tell us a little bit about your course. What is it, and how people can get it, and what is that you walk them through in your course?
Yeah, yeah. So the course is awesome, man. The course is I walk them through. I give them access to all of my documents and resources. That sheet on what to say to landlords to get them to say yes, like how to ask them the question of, you know, I would like to you know, rent your property or lease your property to do a short term rental. You know, I give them those questions and the answers. I give them, you know, why they should rent to them. I give them that sheet. I give There's video courses that breaks down how I got my units, how I do my research, how I use Airbnb to find out where current people are currently renting inside of, you know, these apartment complexes. right? How to find those properties, right? Because a lot of times that's people's biggest problem of getting into this is they don't know how to find it. They don't know where to look. So I showed them where to look in many different occasions. Best insurance to get, to protect your assets. Best ways to get these with no money out of pocket, right? How not to use your own credit. How to use realtors to find your properties, right? A lot of times, there's realtors that help people get into rental properties, and they get paid a commission. You don't even have to pay them. They get paid a commission to get you to sign a lease, right?
Okay.
So imagine you telling that realtor, I need you to find me 5 leases, and I got the money to sign for all 5, right? They're getting paid with one go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now they're incentivized to convince that landlord, I got the perfect person for your property. You know what I mean? They're selling it for you, and you just
Okay.
come in and sign. You know what I mean? You just come in at the back end. So I show you how to do a lot of that inside of there. It's all kind of great resources on the course. Yeah, and it's like I say, it's only 197, so people have been buying it up for a long time, and learning what they can. Education is the key before you get started. I'll tell you that.
And like you said at the beginning, I know you paid a lot of money for your mentorship to be able to gather all this information over the years
Oh
and
man,
go
yeah.
through your trials and errors, right? So where can people get your course?
You can go to my site. It's course.creativecashflowblueprint.com.
Can you type it in on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
link
yeah.
underneath your name?
Let me type it
Yeah, you
in.
should be able to type it in.
Oh, I see it right there.
And what did you say was course what? Let me write it down.
Course, yeah,
Course dot creative
yep, creative cash flow blueprint.
blueprint
Yep,
dot net.
.com.
Blueprint. Let me start back over so I can write it down a little bit more. Okay. Course dot creative cash flow
Yep.
blueprint.com.
Uh-huh.
Were you able to type it in?
Yep. I typed it in. I also dropped my Instagram there. So if
Okay.
anybody has questions or want to shoot a DM to me,
What
they
is
can
your
go ahead.
Instagram?
It's Rockman, Rockman 228.
So IG ROCK Rockman
Yep. 228.
228.
Yep.
IG Rockman 228. And listen, man, Rodney, I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate you sharing with us how we can get into there. See, I wanted to say Airbnb again, right? The short-term rental business, right? So
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing this, man. Listen, and the last, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you think that people need to know as far as this business is concerned that you want to share with them?
Yeah, man. Just if you've been thinking about it, that just means you need to do it. I mean, this is the best way to
Well,
get
let
one.
me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question, right? Because you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
brought it up. It's been a while since short-term rental business has come, right? Is it still profitable?
Yes. Yes, very much so, still profitable. You know what I mean? Especially if you do the research, you take your time to find the right property, right? One single property could net you 2K a month, which could pay for your main expenses, whatever your bill. If you're trying to get your mortgage paid and you pay 2,000 a month, 3,000 a month, it is very possible to get one property to pay your main bills, and now you're in the green, with a lot, right? And it's very possible for it not to have to be. It's a part-time business. You know what I mean? Something you don't have to do 40 hours a week, 20 hours a week, right? If you have one property, it will probably be 2 to 3 hours a week that you need to spend in your business for your property, right?
Okay.
Everybody should do it. I mean, that's my opinion. The market is good in a lot of different places, and I've been successful for 4 years with it. So Yeah.
That brings me up. Did you ever answer the question when I asked you the top five places that you do that, the top five? I know you mentioned that your number one spot right now is in Mississippi, but what are the other places? So I'm in Florida. Would you do Florida? And if so, which
Yeah.
cities,
If
you
if
know?
I if I were to do Florida, I would do like I wouldn't do in the big cities. I would do like the outskirts, Naples, you know what I mean, Fort Lauderdale, some of the places that's not heavily visited by main tourists, but still has some tourism attractions.
Okay.
Anywhere near football stadiums where, coliseums and a lot of events are happening. People are always trying to find anywhere there's heavy traffic. You know what I mean? People, they hate having to come into the city and get hurt, try to get out. They can just be in the middle of everything. Those are always successful. You know what I mean? So, you're talking Tampa Bay. If you're in Tampa, if you can get anywhere near the stadium, it's good. Dallas,
Yeah.
in Dallas, if you can get anywhere near the stadium, just make sure you know the ordinance and if it's allowed, right? Don't try to get somewhere where it's hard, to get it and it's approved, you know.
So I know we kind of wrapping up, but that you just brought up another question as far as over the years, different cities ordinances have brought in laws about short-term rental and not allowing them to operate. Has that has that gotten better? Is it becoming more restrictive?
No, it's definitely coming becoming more restrictive, but the fees that they're charging they're not bad. You know what I mean, to get your permit to operate.
Oh, so now you have to get permits.
Yeah, and a lot of places you have to have permits to operate. So, it's really a good thing. You know what I mean. A lot of people that aren't able to do it, that's not serious short term rental hosts. It's kicking them out.
Got
And
it.
it's saving room for the people that actually run a business that don't mind going through the city steps to get your permit to operate and being able to operate freely without worrying about getting shut down and penalized. Right.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad thing. You just follow the rules and you're good to go.
Okay. Sounds good, man. Hey, listen, man. Once again, I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate taking the time and sharing information with me. And once again, I know we can reach you at IG Rockman228 and course.creativecashflowblueprint.com.
Oh yeah.
Right?
All
All
right,
right, man.
man.
Thank you for sharing the time, right?
No problem. You have a good one.
All right. Thank you, Rodney.